Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at upscaling images on Linux using waifu2x ncnn Vulkan. So what I'm going to do is take you through the steps of downloading, compiling and installing this and then using it. And what I'm going to do is a demo of upscaling an image that's between 130 to 140 years old to show you the difference in quality. So if we come across to the GitHub page for this project, and we scroll down, there's some instructions here for building from source. So what I'm going to do is actually go through the steps. First of all, what you need to do is actually install the Vulkan headers. So it's actually got instructions here for Fedora, Debian and Ubuntu, and also Arch Linux. So this is the first step. You need to install the Vulkan headers and the Vulkan loader devel. But these packages will have different names depending on the distribution. So that's the first step, and then we'll go through and actually clone the repository. So we switch across to the terminal, and we're going to clone this repository. Once that's cloned, what we're going to do is change directory into the repository and update the submodules. So this actually takes a little bit of time to do. And then once we've done that, we're going to build the binary, and then we're going to copy it into place. And what I'll also do is explain about the models, because by default waifu is designed for anime images, but it also has an option for using this for photos. Now there is also Real SR, I believe it's called, for uploading images. The issue with that is two. One, it takes a long time, and two, it's only got a 4x option. So it'll only upscale images by a factor of 4. And if you've already got a large image, 2000 by 1000 pixels, it's going to make it huge and also have a really big file size. Okay, we've cloned the repository. So the next step is actually changing into the directory. I can remember the keyboard shortcut to make this bigger, and that's not what I want. Okay, there we go. Let's make the terminal bigger. So we're in the waifu2x ncnn Vulkan repository that we've just cloned, and what we need to do after we've changed into the directory is run git submodule update init recursive. So this is going to take a little time, and what it's going to do is basically download a load of additional bits of software that are needed for this. And as a side note, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be converting the images from their original when we upscale them to another format. You've got several different formats you can actually choose from. So if I come across to the options here, this is a list of options for waifu2x. We've got the input-output path, and this is really good because not only can you specify a file to process, but you can specify a directory. So you can use this to actually batch process loads of images and upscale them. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going through a load of old family photos and upscaling them. The other options, apart from input and output, we have our noise level. So this is a denoise option, and by default it's set at 0, but we can set it to 1, -1, 1, 2, or 3. 3 is very aggressive and can make the photographs look slightly artificial with excessive sort of smoothing and denoising. Next option we've got here is scale. So this is the upscale ratio 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and the default is 2. The tile is basically how it splits up the image, process it, and that's not an option I've actually played around with. The next option, you probably won't need a lot of these options here, but the one we will need is the model path. So what happens when you build this binary? What happens is there is also a directory called models, and this is used for specifying what kind of image it is, whether it's a sort of a drawing, you know, a cartoon, or a photograph. And what you can actually do is pass in the model that you want to use. So if you're processing lots of anime images, you'd want to use the sort of the model that's designed for that. Whereas if you're using waifu to process images, photographs, you actually want to use the photo model. So I'll show you how that works, and also the models have sort of different options that relate to the scale and the noise level as well, which I'll get into. So as you can see here, this takes a little while to conjure away. So we've done the first couple of steps. We've installed the headers. We've downloaded the Git repository. The next step is to actually make this. So what we need to do is we're going to create a directory called build, and we're going to change into that directory, and then we're going to run cmake. So we run make directory build cd build, and what we do is cmake // source. So if I run ls up one level, you'll see there's a source directory there. So we're actually building stuff in this build directory, but we're referencing stuff in this source directory here. So we run cmake /source. Okay. And it's going to take a little while to go through. And it's going to basically perform a load of tests to make sure everything's working. Okay, and as you can see here, build files have been written. So the next step is we run cmake --build .-j4. Okay, you can see here it's now going through and building this. And then what I'm going to do is actually show you how you install the binary, and also the fact that you need to put the model files somewhere so that you can actually reference them on the command line and specify which model you want to use when you're upscaling particular photos. You can see here it doesn't actually take too long to go through and build this. We're already at 90%. So once this is finished, what will happen is we'll actually get a binary that we can copy to user local bin so that we can run it. Okay, you can see here linking executable. Okay, and you can ignore all this stuff coming up in the terminal. It'll work without all these sort of little sort of errors coming up. So as you can see, this doesn't take ages to build, and I'm building this on a Dell XPS 15 from about 2019 with 16 gig of RAM and a Nvidia 1650 graphics card. And this does actually, I think this actually uses your graphics card to actually process stuff. I think it works on Nvidia and AMD from memory, from reading the notes on the GitHub repository. So this should be done in a sec. Okay, so what we can see here now is if we run ls-l, we have this waifu2x ncnn-vulkan binary here. So we've built that. So what we need to do is just copy that binary to user local bin. So we'd run sudo cp waifu2x ncnn vulkan user local bin. And I've already done that step, so let's use a local bin waifu. So I've already got that installed. So the final step, in the build directory, if you come up a directory cd, what you'll see here is a directory called models. Now, what I'll do is I'll actually just across to the desktop. So this is the repository here, and you can see we've got this models directory. And if I go in this directory, what you'll see is we've got 3 subdirectories: cunet, anime style RGB, and upconv7 photo. So these are different models that you can pass in on the command line depending on what you're processing, and the default is the CUNet. What I'm going to do is actually come into this directory here, models photo. Oops. And what you'll see is, a bit bigger. What you'll see here is there are several files. We've got these bin files here, and these files param, and this file down here. So what you'll see here is these are all listed like noise 0 scale 2, noise 1 scale 2, noise 2 scale 2, noise 3 scale 2, etc. So what these correspond to, the noise and the scale correspond to these options on the command line, -n noise level and -s scale. So you can only use a model with a certain combination of options on the command line. So you can see here we can only use this photos model with either noise at 0, 1, 2, or 3, or scale 2. So if you use different options, you'll get an error. What I'm going to do now, after showing you how to install this, is actually use this. So the first thing we actually need to do is actually copy the, let me just make that a bit smaller there. So we need to copy the models directory somewhere so that we can use it with the -m option and the path to the model. So for instance, in my case, what I've done is in my videos directory, I have a directory called waifu2x, and in there I have the models directory that was in that build, was in the GitHub repository. So you can see here we've got the models directory. Basically, I copied that to another location. So you can see we've got cunet, anime, and photo. So once we got to this stage, we've got everything installed. The other thing that you wanted to do is actually install the libwebp libraries. So what we're going to be doing is when we convert the JPEG or whatever, we're going to actually convert it into a webp file. And the reason for that is the output file options you've got are JPEG, PNG, or webp. So JPEG is a lossy format, meaning that when you use it, it's actually compressing stuff and throwing data away to make the image smaller. PNG and webp are lossless, so they don't throw any, they're not compressed the same way. They don't throw away lots of data to make the file smaller. And you can see that when you zoom it into a JPEG too much, you can see that it gets pixelated, whereas a lossy format, lossless format like PNG or webp doesn't have that pixelation. And we're going to be using the webp image format, and the reason for that is that it's half the size of the PNG files. And this is important because when you actually process the images, say you've got an image that's 1,000 by 1,000 roughly, or something like that, it can go up from like a meg to 20 meg with a webp file, whereas a PNG would be like 40 meg per image. Because typically if you're enlarging something to like 8,000 pixels or whatever, it's going to be a big image. So you need to install libwebp. So DNF search, I think it's called libwebp. Yeah, you can see here, libwebp. So you need to install that image library And what this will allow you to do is actually preview the webp images in your image viewer on the desktop. So you know, whatever image viewer you use, you need libwebp support. But I'll also show you how you can use a web browser to view these webp images. Okay, so we've got the model copied somewhere. So now let's actually have a look at the command that we're actually going to use. So let me just zoom this in a bit. Okay, so the command that we're going to be running is waifu2x ncnn-vulkan. Then we've got the input option -I, input, the input file, and now this can either be a file or a directory. And I'm also going to show you how you can actually batch process stuff in a directory as well as doing an individual file. So we've got -I, the input file. So you can see input.jpg. Then we've got -O, output.webp. The important thing is you also need to specify the webp format on the command line. You can't just give it the webp format extension because it will default to PNG. So the next option is the noise level. So this is the denoise level. So -N, we're going to set the denoise level to 1. The options range from -1 through to 3. And 3 can be a bit aggressive on photographs, so you can try 1 or 2, but I'm going for 1 here. So then next option we've got is -S, and this is the scale. So we're going to be doing a scale of 2, and again these two options here, the -N option for the noise and the -S option for the scale, are also important because they are related to the model that you use, which only accepts certain combination of these two options. Like I was showing you with the photos options, you only have for photos, for the photo model, you've only got options changing the noise level from -1 to 3, but you can only use the scale at 2. The next option here is specifying the format. So we specify -F and then webp. And this is especially useful when you batch process stuff, where you wouldn't actually specify an extension when you're batch processing stuff. So -F webp, and that corresponds to the file extension we're adding there. Then we've got -M, where we specify the model. So this is the path to the model file. So let me just zoom this back out a bit so you can see it all on one line. So -M, and this is the path to the models directory I was showing you. So video, you know, you can put the models directory anywhere you want. So models, and then we've got models upcom 7 photo. So let me just show you that again. Video way through. So you don't actually specify the path to either a bin or param file. You specify the path to the directory containing these. And as you can see here, as I was mentioning before, each of these has 2 parts. It's got the bin and it's got the param, and they're named the same. So we've got noise 0 scale 2, noise 1 scale 2. Okay, so that corresponds to these options here, the -N and the -S option. So you pass in the path to the model directory, and then what it does is it uses the options you passed in here, like noise 1 scale 2, and it will then use the appropriate bin and param files. So in my case here, it would use noise 1 scale 2 model bin and param. So that was one thing that got me. I thought you had to pass in the full path to one of these, but that's not the case. You actually just pass in the path to the directory. And now if you get an error when you're running a command, for example, if you used scale 4, you can see there's no scale 4 option here, so it would fail. Okay, so that's the actual command that we're going to be using. So what I'm going to do is actually show you a photograph that we're actually going to go and compress here. So what we've got here is a image that's 230 kilobytes, and this is probably taken in the 1880s or 1890s, and this is my great grandmother who was born in Paris in 1859. So what we're going to do is actually process this image and then show you the before and after and how it's actually really picked out the details. So what I'm doing here is actually using the image viewer on GNOME. And you can see this is just displaying the JPEG. So what I'm going to do now is actually process this. So I'm just going to copy the end bit of the command here. So waifu2x in the file name, out. You're going to give it the same file name but with the webp extension here. So waifu2x -i, the in file to process -o, the name of the out file to process, the webp extension, and then we're going to paste in this option down here. Let me just. So we got noise, denoise level 1, scale 2, format webp -m, and this is the path to the model file. So this is the path to the model, and we're passing in the model's upconv7 photo. So what I do now is I just press return, and there we go. It's upscaled it. So what I'm actually going to do now, you can see here, the image, it's gone from 230 kilobytes to 2.8 meg. And what I'm actually going to do is open up Chromium. And the reason for that is, let me just put this on the other window. Let me just move the, let me just move OBS across. Hang on a sec. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I've got Chromium open here, and what I'm going to do is press Control or Command O on the keyboard and actually come across to the desktop. And what I'm going to do, you can see here, it's open the file username desktop. I'm just going to delete the actual file name here and press return, so it just says desktop. The reason for that is so it's now giving me a directory view of the desktop so that I can see the two files and I can open them both in different tabs. So this is the original and this is the webp. What I'm going to actually do is come across and zoom right in here. So this is the original file. So let me just move this up a bit. Okay. So this is the original file. So the details that we actually want to look at are, there's kind of like a sort of wearing like a bangle here. You can see it's got sort of metal that's coming across here. We can also look up here at the material and the brooch. So what I'm going to do is, if you just keep an eye on the bracelet down here, and I'm going to now switch across to the upscaled version. Can you see that? Can you see the difference in how clear that is now? So here's the original. You can see that's all, not sharp. I'm going to switch across to the new one. You can see how that's brought that out completely. Also, if we have a look up here, we can see the material and we can see the brooch. So if you focus on this section here, I'll go back to the original. Here's the original. There's the brooch, and I'll switch across to the new version. You can see how that's brought that out a treat. So this is the enhanced version. Again, this photograph is between 130 to 140 years old. So again, here's the original. Let's zoom out. So you can zoom in and out by pressing Control or Command plus or minus. So let's just switch across, bring that in there, and show you the. So if you look at this whole section here, these details on the image up around here and the face. So this is the original. I'll switch across to the new version. You can see how that's really making that all pop out. So let's have a look at some of the other actual details. So I just zoom back out on these. So the other thing you can really notice is the carving on the box down here. So if I sort of zoom in on the box bit and the material, this section down here, so this is the original, and we just kind of zoom into the same. So I think that needs to be zoomed in one. Right, so here's the original. So if you have a look at the detail on the material, the tassels coming up around here, the actual carving on this box, and now I'll switch to the enhanced version. You can see how, okay, there's the original, and you can see it sort of brings kind of some of these details out as well, but it's mainly noticeable up on this section here. You can really tell the difference. Okay, so that's a before and after on a photo, interestingly taken by the photographers to the Queen, believe it or not. So again, this is taken in Paris, I believe, in the 1880s or 1890s, and I just wanted to show you, you know, how good waifu2x is at actually upscaling images and actually bringing out some of the detail without making it look like, you know, an anime cartoon. So another thing I want to come through and actually mention, another thing that I want to do actually is show you how to process a directory. So what I'm going to do is, hang on, let me close this and move this back to the other thing and then switch back to here. Okay, seamless. So what I'm going to do now is actually show you how to process a directory. So okay, so I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to create a directory, call it okay, so what I've done is create a directory called input and put the image into that directory. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to actually process a directory. So I'm just going to copy the last part of the command so I don't have to type it out. So what we want to do is be one level up from the directory we actually want to process. We don't want to be inside the directory we want to process. We want to be outside it. Makes sense? So waifu2x -i input -o input. So what we're doing here is we're saying the input is the input directory and the output is the output directory. And then what we're doing is specifying the same options: noise D-level 1, scale 2, format webp. And this is the important part. So basically what this does is it's going to create a webp version of any image in that directory with the same file name, but just the webp extension. Yeah. Then we pass in the model. Okay. So now see inside the input directory, we've got the two files, JPEG and the processed WebP image. So that's all there is to it, apart from one thing. When you convert or upscale some images, they can be rotated. They can be rotated anti-clockwise or clockwise. Yeah. So what happened was I was using like the file manager. So hang on, say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So let me just come across and show you. So let's pretend that this is scaled the wrong way. let's just pretend that this is scaled this way or something. So what can happen is when you scale the images, they can either be rotated this way or this way sometimes. So what you can do is if you just rotate it and then like save it, all right, and go reload, you think, oh yeah, I'll just use the I'll actually just stop this because I want to make a copy. We just want to make a copy before I do this. Okay, so suppose it's been rotated. You can see the original. I think now I've actually changed it. Now I've actually rotated it. It's changed the size. But as I said, if you do this and save it, what happens is it reduces the file size. So let me see if it's done it on both of them actually. So yeah, basically what happens is you can see that's now roughly the same size. Let me just delete this and go through and reprocess that and show you the difference in the file size. Okay, where was it? Okay, so you can see, just copy this, do this again, bear with me. So you can see the upscaled image is 2.8 meg, the original 230. What happens is if you use the image viewer on Linux and you suppose, this was the wrong way and you rotated it and you saved it, like reload, okay, close that. What you'll see is it's gone from 2.8 meg down to 240. Yeah, so you'd think, oh, that's just an easy way to rotate them. Well, don't do that because you can see it's reduced the file size right down, which basically thrown a load of data away, which defeats the whole object. So what I'm going to do now is actually show you how you can rotate an image losslessly with imagemagick. So we've got the webp version there. So imagemagick rotate webp. So what you can do is use imagemagick to actually rotate losslessly a webp file. So we've got rotate anti-clockwise. So magic input.webp rotate -90 and then dash define webp colon lossless equals true and then the output file. So let's rename that to input. Let's get rid of the input directory and let's just call that input, just make the command easier. Okay, so we want to rotate this input file. So magic input rotate webp. So this is output. This is going to rotate it to the left. What I just want to show you is you can see that the file size is exactly the same. And if I open the doodad, yeah. So we've got input, which was the original, and you can see now here we've rotated it the other way. So what I'll do is I'll just do the same thing, but rotate it the other way. To.webp. Okay. So there we go. You can see the file size is exactly the same on all of them. Oh, I hate when it does that. So that's the this is the enhanced version. This is the one we rotated that way, and then there's the one rotated the other way. So as I said, the reason I'm showing you this is because what will happen on some images is that when you upscale them, they will either be rotated clockwise or anti-clockwise. And don't be tempted to use the GUI application because that's what I did. I just spent ages doing this thing. Oh, they're the wrong way round. I'll go through, rotate them all with the thing, and then look through at folders. I'd processed and bugger. It's completely buggered up the images by reducing the file size. So that then got me into what do you need to use to actually rotate the images losslessly, and the answer is imagemagick. So just install imagemagick. So DNF search imagemagick, and I believe, I can't remember if there's if there's anything additional you need to install for imagemagick webp. I think as long as you install libwebp, imagemagick will have support for manipulating webp images on the command line. You can also actually use ffmpeg to manipulate webp images as well with a recent build. So that's basically the recap. So let's go through a little recap of this. So what we had is waifu2x ncnn. Okay, so it's available for Windows, Linux, Mac, executable for Intel, AMD, and Nvidia. We basically went through the steps of setting this up on Linux. And these are the options that you can use again. So help, verbose, we've got the input path and the output path that I covered for either processing an individual image or a directory. We've got the denoise level with the -n. So the options that you're really going to want to use are I, O, N, S, and M, probably not the other ones so much. Input, output, noise, the scale, and the model path. And this is how we've built everything from source. So this is the first step. If you're on Linux, you need, if you're on Fedora, install the Vulkan headers, Vulkan loader devel. If you're on Ubuntu or Debian based distribution, you want libvulkan-deb. And if you're on Arch Linux, you want Vulkan headers and Vulkan ICD-loader. And then basically we went through the steps of building this. We cloned the Git repository, changed into it, and then run git submodule update --init --recursive. We then created a build directory, changed into it, ran cmake --source, and then cmake --build. Cmake /source, and then cmake --build --j4. Once we did that, we copied the waifu2x ncn Vulkan to user local bin, and the important step is you need to copy the models directory somewhere so that you can actually use it with the -m option, the path to the model. And again, the important thing about the models, see here, this is the models directory is right inside the Git repository there. And again, we've got the CUnit, the anime, and the photo. And as you can see here, they all have different options that you can use them with scale to, different levels of noise and scale. So if you run the command and there's a mismatch between the command and the stuff listed in here, the scale and the noise, you'll get an error. So that's the models directory, and again, we just get that there so you can see it all in one line. So we've got the input -I, input -O, output, denoise level, scale, format webp, models file. So that's how you can process something individually or batch process it by passing in the directory, and that'll churn away. And they said the Only issue is, again, that you may have some images that are rotated the wrong way. So I'll put links to the imagemagick commands, easy to use. So you can rotate it left or right, anti-clockwise or clockwise to fix the error. That's pretty much it. You can try out some of the different combinations of noise level and scale and that kind of thing, but just be aware that don't think you can use a scale 4x with the photos. But with the photos I had, that would actually make them too big anyway. So again, you can either use the use your image viewer on Linux, as long as you've got libwebp installed, and that should work. I'm not sure about Mac OS and Windows if stuff like preview on the Mac has got support for webp, because webp is a Google thing, and that's Apple. Do they want to put a Google thing on that? All that kind of stuff. And also with Windows, I'm not sure. You may need to install something else to use it with your image viewer. But if you don't have support for webp in your image viewer on your distro, just use Chromium or Firefox. Let me just move that back here. So we need to open desktop and then the file, and you can see there you can zoom in. So command or control in plus or minus. I'm not sure, it doesn't seem to be something to actually pan around. I don't know if there's a key to pan around, so you kind of got to use the scroll bars, which is sort of a bit annoying. But you can use Firefox or Chromium, and as I said, here's the end result. You can really see all this has been cleaned up. This this bracelet here, all this round here, the material and the brooch. And again, this is probably must have been in a 20. I'd have thought she must have been in her 20s here. So this is probably 1880s, latest mid, 1890s. So it's like 100 to 130 to 140 years old. So you can really see it's pulled out a lot of the detail, and it's a really good option to actually go through and process loads of photos. And I've been using it. I've gone through and processed probably a couple of thousand, must be, images. Took half a day or so. But now the only issue, as I said, I'll have to go through and manually rotate some of the images using imagemagick. So that's how you can use waifu2x, ncnn, Vulkan. You can use it on said Windows, Mac, Linux. But I just wanted to go through and show you how to build it on Linux, because it's not actually available in my repository on Fedora. It may be, I don't know if it is on Arch Linux or something else, but it's not on anything like NixOS or anything like that. So that's why we had to build it. And the only issue I had was you had to specify the model path. It wasn't working till I specified the actual model path. And again, you've got the three options. You've got the CUNet, the anime, and the photo. So you can read all about the options down here, and how you can use it. But it said you can process stuff individually or batch process stuff. And the three output options you've got JPEG, PNG, or WebP. I don't really think you'd want to use JPEG, because it kind of defeats the object, because it's a lossy format where it compresses stuff and throws away data. So when you zoom in, you're going to get the pixelation. So that's why the other two options, you've got a PNG or WebP. And said the PNG images are twice the size of the WebP. So I've got some images that have been upscaled to like 8,000 or something. They're originally, 2,000, a couple of thousand width height. And they're upscaled to about 8,000, and they'd come in like 17, 20 meg for a WebP, whereas the PNG would come in at 40 meg. And the issue is some image viewers really struggle with displaying such a large image, and also if you've ever tried to load a 40 meg image in the browser, you'll know it takes quite a while. Whereas WebP is a new format that's pretty nippy. Some people don't like it, but it's lossless, and again, you can manipulate it using imagemagick and stuff like that. So take a look at that. It's pretty useful. It's actually used in the back end of the Dandray 2x video upscaler that I showed you in a previous video. So come across to my videos directory, Dandray 2x. So this is Dandray 2x that I covered in a previous video that you can use to actually, it's got a nice, easy to use GUI that you can use to upscale videos. And what I noticed was if I come into the source externals, you can see here some of the external applications that are using are real SR, ncnn Vulkan, and waifu2x ncc Vulkan. And if you come into here, you'll see there's the binary and the actual models. So I actually came across this by accident when I was using Dandray 2x. I noticed this was packaged with that, and I got into using it there and then actually manually installing it. I said there's also real SR, but I said the issue I had with that was that it's only a 4x upscaler, and it takes a lot longer to actually process the images compared to waifu2x. So that's upscaling images on Linux using waifu2x ncnn Vulkan. Easy to install, didn't take that long to actually go through, a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes or something, to actually download, build it, and then actually get into using it. You can go through all the options, but just remember you do need to specify the model path, because otherwise it may sort of spew errors. And also you need to make sure that the options you use here correspond to the options available for that particular model. So that's all for now. I'll put links to all this under the video, and hope that helps you upscale old images, maybe old family photos, that sort of thing, or just any old photos you've got, or images, whether anime or photos. You can upscale them either individually or batch process them. And it says it's going to take, it'll depend on your processor and how how much RAM and your graphics card, that sort of thing, how long it actually takes to do stuff. But I must have gone through, must be a couple of thousand images in half a day or something, upscaling them with these options. And yeah, they look fine. One thing to note is with some of the color images, you will get a slight shift in the contrast with some images, so that it can actually sort of kind of like improve the image, improve the contrast of the image. So that's one thing to bear in mind for photos, is that there will be on some photos there will be a slight contrast shift that can be noticeable. So something that's really very bright, the processed version can have a bit of contrast. So that's all for now. I'll put all that under the video and hope that helps out.